Hi everyone, my name's Elena, and I will be talking about the first question that was listed. How do you think your lessons can utilize technology in a way that integrates Bloom's taxonomy? So my school is a project-based learning school, or we're going in that direction. First grade decided to take on this task as being the first to really kind of show how it works and what is important about it and what is hard to do with young students. So I teach first grade, which is mainly made up of 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds, and integrating technology into the classroom is very difficult. Not only because students require a lot more supervision while working on technology because of distractions or their inability to work on the technology, whether that's typing, reading, or even maneuvering through a computer. I come from a low-income district where the whole first grade, or every grade, shares one Chromebook cart that usually comes with about 20 to 40 Chromebooks on it at once, and we had 6 classes in first grade. So it was very difficult to get technology in the classroom for every student to use at all times. So we would mainly use the smartboard and integrate technology that way. So when we're talking about Bloom's taxonomy, there are 6 elements that we go through, or processes that we go through. The first one is remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. And these all kind of formulate into how to learn and how to process information. From chapter 1, I realized after reading it, I had not realized that there was other ways, or I knew that there was other ways to go about teaching, obviously, but the one that I had always been really open and had used frequently was project-based learning. I didn't, however, know that it was high risk on the scale of how many different factors go into it. When I was reading through it, it talked about Web 2.0 tools, technology centers, and teacher collaborations, and then last was project-based learning. I knew about technology centers, and I actually integrate one into my class every day, where I just take 3 or 4 Chromebooks, which isn't too much and doesn't affect anyone else, and I have them work on a Chromebook, whether it's Raz Kids, which is a reading resource, or a math resource like Prodigy, and it really helps them maneuver through technology, but I'm not available to really give them that attention and teach them how to use it while they're in that technology center, because I'll be doing my small groups, my help at the back table while they're working on that. So I've been having a lot of trouble finding ways to integrate technology where I can teach them, because they're young students and not many of them have computers at home. Most of them have tablets where they can just click an app and then be good, and they don't really have to type in or research anything. So in first grade, we learn a lot about researching and how to go about finding the information that they need. The one that I really focused on was nonfiction text features and finding them within books and online resources. So what we did first was we used my smartboard, and I talked about each kind of text feature through a website, and they can go up and circle it with the smartboard pen so that they were not entertained, but engaged in the lesson and working with me as well, and working with the technology and more engaged in what we were learning and what we're talking about. So when we're doing remember, we have to recall, listen, describe, locate, and recognize information. So these students are having to really process what they're learning and how far they need to go back in their memory to think about these things. So when we point out text features on a website, we usually look for pictures, we look for a heading, we look for descriptions, anything that helps give us information without actually reading the text beforehand. So recalling that information is the first step. And we usually do that as a whole group on my smartboard so that we can all listen in case someone forgot something. Then it's understand. So in understand, we talk about explaining, comparing, discussing, and interpreting. And when these students are understanding information, having them verbalize what they're talking about and what they're seeing helps them recognize certain aspects of learning. So if I had my website on the smartboard and I asked them, can you tell me what that does and why we use it and what's important about it? And they tell me, they're able to help re-solidify their information as well as other students' information. And they're getting to use resources at the same time. If I pulled a book, which is unfortunately not a technology, but something I have at my disposal for everyone and every student in many different ways, they're able to take that information and open it and find something quickly. We use apply next, which is solving, using, illustrating, and examining. So these students are finally getting, if I'm able to, they get their own Chromebook or they work in a small group. So I will be having students in little groups working on one computer so that they can show each other how to use it. I would have to demonstrate beforehand how to use it because these Chromebooks not only have a keyboard, but they are touchscreen. So I have to show them how not to get out of a web page, or if they do get out of it, how to get back onto it, how to find information and not click on anything. It's really important that I describe how to use these things because we do have a computer class that they go to once a week. However, they work on desktops. They don't work on the Chromebook, so it's a lot easier for them to get off of the designated web page rather than when they're on the desktop and they have a mouse. So we are finding the information and we're starting to really take in what we want to talk about on said project. So hopefully by the end of this project-based learning, we will have a final PowerPoint. Then we go to analyze, which is organizing, planning, and structure. So we are taking the information that we need and putting it into an organized format, which I prefer to use the first, then, next, last, which helps them really identify what they're talking about in the beginning, which is the most general, and then going down to the most specific, almost like an upside down triangle. So the information goes in a V formation. So helping them identify those things will better their learning and help them structure what they want to say. Before we get to evaluate, this is where I would start going over how to create their PowerPoint. So at this point, I'm helping them gather their information on my smartboard and really talking about how to write their sentences, because at this point they're still struggling to use a keyboard and spelling. Most of my students had a lot of trouble spelling even sight words, let alone sounding out words. So I would have them write down and I would help feedback, or I would give them feedback to spell however they wanted to write their sentence, and they would then nitpick at letters so that they could create their PowerPoint. This is really hard to do because just like in chapter 1 said, project-based learning takes a lot of monitoring, consistent monitoring, and it's a long process. Like, this is not just a week process. Like, this would take at least 2, maybe 3 weeks, depending on how well your students become applied and adapted to this process. Lastly, we go to create, which is where they're finalizing their PowerPoints. They're putting on their last final touches. They're creating pictures, putting on diagrams, whatever they need to do for their final project. And of course, I'd have to walk around and really help them and make sure everyone's on task and everyone had a job. Everyone needs to be a part of it and use the computer because it is not just for the students that are on the higher end or do have computers at home. These are for everyone, and everyone needs to be a part of it. So something that I learned in chapter 1 had to do with one of the case studies that was listed in here, where, well, maybe not a case study, but a real voice experience where these students, or where the teacher really explained how she went about integrating it into her classroom. However, her classroom is much older than mine. Hers was a 4th grade classroom, the one that was listed on Colorado, and it's hard for me to integrate these kind of skills. I'd have to really sit down and focus on how to create them to be for younger students from ages 6 to 7, because they're not on that level, and because it's a low-income area, not all the students get all the help that they need at home, so they may even be a whole grade level behind. This takes a lot more skill and precision to teach them the skills that they need in order to use the technology in the classroom. So I hope that I received some good feedback on these comments, and that you have a great night. Bye.